Good morning, guys. It is 5:30 a.m. The sun isn't quite up just yet. We're about to head an hour south of Perth and fly some skydiving sorties. So come along for the trip and I'll show you what it's all about. The sun's just rising. We're on the freeway heading south, about 45 minutes out. I'll see you once we get there. So I've just pulled up at the gate. Rob's a couple of minutes behind me with the keys. We'll get in, pull the plane out, get fuel ready, and skydivers should be about an hour behind us, and we'll get ready for the day. It's looking beautiful, nothing but blue skies. We've got light northeasterlies, sort of 4 to 5 knots for pretty much the whole day. Really doesn't get much better, sort of 25 to 28 degrees, so not too warm, cool enough. So just got the plane pulled out. Gonna grab some fuel. We got most of the cows off the runway. We'll have to do a second trip up there soon just to get them out of this front paddock. But have a look at this weather. So I'll show you the fuel setup that we use out here. It's a 44-gallon drum, but we do use an electric pump. So this is it here. So we use 44-gallon drum with a pickup line and a vent on top. That pickup line runs all the way up into the fuel system in here. Then the electric pump brings it up through the filter, the counter. It's obviously our power on here. This is all just a little solar power setup. And then that runs to our hose and obviously our earth. Alright, and we're away, guys. So we're just up off Pinjarra now, climbing through 1,000 foot. We've brought the prop back to 2,400. Just maintaining 28 inches. I'm just going through on the GPS and getting it set up. So we've got the Pinjarra drop zone set up as the #1 point on our user waypoint list for our jump run, so I can give the boys a nice accurate distance and time for when they're getting ready. So we're just listening out to Melbourne Centre out here. No real airspace above us. We've got a clean climb all the way up to flight level 140. I usually track over just to the base of the hills to try and find a little bit of thermal activity. This helps us on the way up. Everything we can do in these little Cessna 182s. Between that and just flying very nice wide pattern, so we're not turning too much, getting rid of too much of that lift, and just making sure that we're coordinated the whole way up just to keep the airframe as efficient as possible. Absolutely beautiful day today though. I don't think there's a single cloud in the sky. The wind on the ground is pretty much non-existent. It's variable, 1 to 2 knots. Coming through about 3,000 feet, we have a very, very slight northerly, and that'll drop off today as pressure system sort of comes over us.
Run very well on the beach, thanks mate, I'll call you back in a minute.
We're going to have beautiful stable air today. Makes it nice for the jumpers. It means they can actually get a little bit of penetration through the wind. They're not fighting a headwind under canopy. so they can actually cover a little bit of ground and move about to set themselves up for their own landings. So once we're established nicely in the climb, because we have 2 electrical fuel pumps in this aircraft with the supercharger, we switch one off, make sure we've still got good fuel flow, which we do over here. We monitor that, and that's just so we don't get unnecessary wear on both fuel pumps. And we just cycle them between sorties, so one sortie I'll stay through obviously through the whole run on pump 1, and on the next sortie I'll stay on the whole climb on pump 2. They're both on for takeoff and landing. That way, if we need to get power in quickly, there's no chance whatsoever of pulling air in the lines with the supercharger, because we do use quite a bit more fuel. We're just holding our climb, 7,000 feet, coordinated, about 600 feet a minute, 550 feet a minute, keeping our temps, green, our EGT. Prop's doing about 2,300 and just off 28 inches at the moment. I'm at 7,500 now.
Aircraft at Pinjarra 7,000 and climbing. This is Melbourne Centre.
Melbourne Centre, traffic is Echo Juliet Whiskey coming through 7,500.
Echo Juliet Whiskey, thanks. I think I spoke to you earlier. Are you doing parachute ops at Pinjarra?
AFM, sir, you did, and Echo Juliet Whiskey, that's affirmative, parachute ops at Pinjarra.
Roger, sir. Just be advised there's a police chopper operating within 10 miles of Mandu, flight level 120, that just encroaches your area as well.
Okay, we can copy the traffic of the police chopper. Do you know what their intentions are at this stage? Echo Juliet Whiskey.
Perth sender at the moment. I'll talk to Perth and get back to you.
Alright, copy that, appreciate it, Echo Juliet Whiskey.
Alright, so just having a chat to Perth there. Got a police chopper that's going to be working near us. Alright, so now that I'm at full power, the supercharger sort of at its max capacity, our manifold pressure is slowly going to start coming down. So since we're doing that, our fuel mixture is changing. So we slowly start pulling fuel out to maintain our EGT, our performance. Otherwise, from this point upwards, we will continue getting richer and richer, which is quite a lot when we're climbing all the way up to flight level 140. Obviously, nowhere near as much of a change as a naturally aspirated engine, but yeah, still quite a bit of a difference. So everything in skydive ops is managing temperature. And the big thing we want to make sure we do is not allow the engine to shock cool when we're coming back down the hill. So to do that, we actually keep quite a bit of power in on the engine down the hill. So the engine's creating its own heat, and we quite aggressively lean just before we come down the hill. We also close the cowl flap on jump run. Yeah, so it's all about trying to keep as much heat in the engine as we can on the descent. Because we are coming down the hill, what you could come down the hill is pulling power all the way back, nosing down, and coming down at a really high airspeed. That would shock cool the front of the engine. You'd get a big difference in temperature between your front cylinders catching more airflow to the rear cylinders. Current outside temperature is about 10 degrees, what's that, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice and cool for the boys once they're in freefall.
So that was an interesting one. So it looks like we might have had a slight fault on that previous flight with one of the fuel pumps. So on climb, I lost engine power. Immediately, low fuel pressure warning came up. The fuel pressure gauge dropped to near on zero, yeah, so immediately nosed over. Airspeed is king. Sort of at that point I had identified it was fuel flow immediately. Brought the second fuel pump online, which is we spoke about briefly previously. That immediately brought fuel pressure back up, and I'm not quite sure if the engine actually stopped or I air started it. It sort of happened pretty quick, but I think basically the engine sort of coughed and slowed down quite a bit, but bringing that fuel pump back on so quickly, I think we were basically able to catch it as the engine was starving of fuel and keep the engine going. So I finished jump run. That sort of happened to me about 13,000 feet. I was on jump run, just turned onto jump run. So I finished jump run on a slightly lower power setting. I'd actually started to slowly bring power back in towards full to see if I could recreate the issue, to see if I could put more draw on the fuel system to see if the same fault came about. It didn't. By the time I sort of got to the end of jump run, I was almost back at full power and still had no issue. About halfway through my descent, I did actually level off ever so slightly and put a fair bit of power back in, and then cycled from fuel pump 1 to fuel pump 2, giving them both a little while to see if it was one or two of the fuel pumps which had failed, to see once again if I could recreate the issue. I wasn't able to. I did leave both fuel pumps on the rest of the way down the hill until landing, and then had a chat with one of the other pilots, and he's going to take it for a run on this one to see if he can find anything with it. We do have 2 fuel pumps, but yeah, I mean, it just shows this is why everything in aviation has redundancies. You know, on an aircraft that's not supercharged or turbocharged, you have the mechanical fuel pump and an electrical fuel pump. Low wings will have an electrical and an electric pump and a boost pump. They'll have some form of other fuel pump to back up the main system, which is exactly what this Cessna has. But I just thought I'd give you that little tidbit because I was pretty busy watching gauges and maintaining everything on the way, continuing on the way up the hill and then both down the hill. Needless to say, flying the plane comes way before talking to the cameras.
So now that we're down a bit lower, we're in the warmer air now. Still coming down the hill quickly. Now we need to start slowing the aircraft up.
Rex 2358, thanks. You cleared direct to green. Let me know if you can do 20.
Direct green, we'll carry Rex 2358.
Alright, and we are on the ground.